Hello and welcome back on the main stage of the IDSA Summit. I hope you had an enjoyable lunch break. Now we're back here on stage one, where you will be able to witness in more information about the adoption acceleration. So how are we planning to bring use cases to life? In case you're interested in the other session, which is about usage control, how to technically enforce policies on your data, please go to the sessions area and select the other stage. That's also a great opportunity to learn more. Otherwise, I'm glad to be here with you. So let us have a look at the agenda quickly. Exactly. So first of all, I will give you a very quick run through what we are talking about when we say Adoption Accelerator, what this is about, what are the topics, what we are planning to do. Then my dear colleague Natalia will talk about the knowledge base, one very important pillar of the adoption acceleration. Then Markos Matsas, also a colleague of ours, will join the stage to give you an introduction of the use case radar, one very great source for inspiration. And also external colleagues of ours, Pieter from InnoPay will be with us to introduce his work as our implementation partner together with one of our use cases. And last but not least, Babak Jahromi from Microsoft and Stefan Ettl from BMW will be here to talk even further about the open source connector, the Eclipse project that was introduced earlier in the session before. So let's talk for a minute about Adoption Accelerator. Here on this slide, you can see a funnel in the middle. This funnel reflects about the different states that a use case can be in. This goes from a very first thought about an IDS-based use case all the way up to having a use case ready at the market, and all the stages in between. So maybe there is first a certain commitment and you start to document your case, you write down the ideas, try to build a first drawing of an architecture. After that, you go into a pilot phase where you start implementing. Proofs of concepts will be part here. And afterwards, you want to bring this to the market. And we have use cases on many different levels here of this funnel. Which will be transparent, and this is already the link to Markos later, who will present the use case radar, which are represented in the use case radar. There you can see all these different levels of maturity. You can see how the different where the different use cases are cited domain-wise. So this is a really great asset that actually today is launched on our IDSA webpage. The other base Natalia will bring to you in a second is the knowledge base. So in case you have your very first steps in the IDS ecosystem, in this IDS world, you have to gather knowledge. So where to find first information, where can I download the reference architecture, where are open source repositories to download code and make use of it. All these things are condensed in the knowledge base. Natalia will talk about it in a sec. And then the maybe most important aspect here of adoption acceleration is the community thought. In our past work, the use cases that were most successful were those who were founding coalitions of those who have the same intent and add with their different skills to one bigger use case. One provides the technical knowledge, the other one the business challenge, yet the third party might support the project by project management. All of these things come together, and we here at the head office have a very good overview in case you are somewhere in this funnel and you don't know how to get one step up. We have a good overview with whom to put in contact in order to bring things further. So having said this, I would be glad to welcome Natalia here on stage to give us some more insights into the knowledge base. So welcome, Natalia, back on stage.
Thank you, Christoph.
The stage is yours. See you in a sec.
Thank you, Christoph, for this kind introduction. So what is key for a successful adoption? It is the access to knowledge. And therefore, we are currently working towards a wholesome knowledge base where two kinds of people and IDS friends are welcome. And the one kind of the persons are the people that are seeking and searching for information on IDS. And they need, for example, support in the implementation of IDS components. And the other type of persons we want to address with our knowledge base are those that are already experienced with IDS, and those that would like to share their experiences and their knowledge on IDS. So currently we have 3 different locations to share our knowledge on IDS and to collect everything. The one is the adoption webpage. So here, this page is especially for those who are looking for some sources that are of value for them, where they can learn about the IDS, or they can also find implementation partners that can support their processes, or also they can get inspired by different use cases within the use case radar, which will be explained later by our colleague Markos. And then we have our collaboration space, which is the Jive space for our IDSA members, and there they can interact with each other, for example. And the third location where we have our knowledge base and knowledge accessible is the GitHub repository of IDSA. And here the focus is also on the participation of the IDS friends. So it is not only a point and a location where you can find relevant resources and links, but it's also a location and a place where you can put your own experiences on. You can link to what you have provided or what you have elaborated in terms of IDS. We have experienced just a few days ago a good example on this, because we have been approached by a sensor that they have prepared and provided an IDS documentation on how to perform the first broker connection using an IDS connector. So we haven't been aware of this, but it's a really great thing. And so we'll use this chance and opportunity and link to this documentation also on GitHub. And on GitHub, we have this IDS documentation started also, where all the relevant links can be then also added from your side, and where we can have this sharing community. And this leads us to our call to action also on this point, because if you want to learn something more about the IDS, just visit our adoption page and get there the resources that you need, or visit GitHub. But also you can contact us directly if you need some support. And the other message and call to action is, if you have something that you have prepared in terms of IDS that you would like to share with us in the community, then also participate on GitHub or contact us also directly, and we will find the right place to place your experience. And this brings us to my colleague Markos, Matsas, which will now explain the use case radar. And welcome, Markos, on the stage.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Natalia. Thank you very much for the introduction. And let me just share my screen to present the use case radar. Yeah, you see my screen, I guess. Okay, great. So as it has been said before, also from Christoph and Natalia, the Adoption Accelerator program is supposed to be one of the services that we try to offer towards the growth and proliferation of data spaces. And this specific asset, the use case radar, is supposed to be what we want to use to show to the world what is happening around adoption, not only supported by our Adoption Accelerator, but overall use cases and data spaces that make use of the IDS concepts. And this is a great opportunity to inspire people in different domains and companies and organizations, different domains about adoption topics, to allow the connection of companies that are interested into being connected to data spaces or use cases with the experts that support this kind of use cases, and of course track progress. So basically there are 3 key things that we present together with this use case radar. We have some inspiring success stories from different domains. Of course, the domains that you will see in a bit in the demo that I will give you on the website where the use case radar is live right now are just few of them. This radar will grow and we will need the support of all of you to get new use cases and put them on the radar. Use cases that we're probably not are aware of, or we know a few details, very few details about them. Of course, as seen also before in the funnel, we have maturity levels. So we've taken the maturity levels from the funnel and made them into the radar to cover use cases that come from leading phases where the companies and consortium of companies and organizations try to shape sovereign data sharing use cases towards even live use cases and data spaces using right now sovereign data sharing that we offer. And we also offer the progress monitoring. We want to say that the radar is looking forward, which means that this is only what you will see in a second, the first version of the radar. And we will, of course, update it regularly, monthly, or even in shorter periods, and there you will see all the new use cases, all the use cases that are moving towards live being highlighted in an effort of us to show how every use case and every data space is working towards their business goals through sovereign data sharing. So here we have the link, which is right now running, and we have also a QR code. I would say that this could work also through a mobile device, but I would suggest that you probably use better a PC, a laptop, because the screen, as you will see, it's a bit crowded and you don't get maybe the full functionality using a mobile device. So as you will see, this is pretty interactive, and when I mouse over some use cases, you get a few information, but you can click also on them to see more information about them. And on the bottom, you see the different maturity levels and what do they exactly mean. So we want to provide a description so that everybody understands what we are presenting with leading, case committed, pilot, and live. And we have done also a small separation between use case and projects / alliances, initiatives like mobility data space, Catena X, and so on, of projects that have a bigger scope to create a data space or include multiple use cases. Some examples, let's say from leading, we have the fair data spaces that we saw yesterday, and we can see its level of maturity. We can see a few information, and when clicking show more, you can find a few more information, but also some links. So in the future, there will be also a lot more connections, like, for example, other use cases of other companies that have an implementation partner. So implementation partners will have the opportunity, and we ask them to bring use cases in this radar so that they can also promote the great work that they are doing. And we have also, of course, some live data spaces or use cases, such as the Data Intelligence Hub from Deutsche Telekom that was also presented before, the SCSN, and so on. So I just want to mention two very important things maybe when looking this radar. First of all, obviously, this doesn't include all IDS-based use cases that we know. It includes some of them. We decided to go with this first version during the summit so that we can kickstart this activity, and we already want to promote you. Also in this page, you will find some details where you can contact us and bring your use case to the radar, and let it also, as the time goes by and we support you with the Adoption Accelerator, go towards the phases, and you can get, of course, the support from us and from our implementation partners and experts that you will need to do this. Of course, the speed here in the radar that use cases and data spaces move from phase to phase is relative, meaning that in some cases it takes a few weeks or months to move from one phase to the other. In small cases, maybe where 2 or 3 companies want to exchange data for a specific to meet a specific business challenge. But in data spaces that are bigger and want to use more functionalities of a complete data spaces, such as the data mobility space, for example, this might take more time to go to pilot or live, but of course, this will obviously create more impact. So we want to cover all types of cases. This is a radar that we hope that will grow more and more with support from you and from all experts that are out there. And yeah, just 3 very simple call to actions. Get inspired from the success stories that you will find there, connect to the experts that supported these success stories, bring your use cases, and of course, become part of the Adoption Accelerator to either get support and be part of the radar, or if you are an implementation partner or an expert that supplies IDS solutions, bring use cases that you support in this radar. Thank you very much, and I'm going back to Christoph.
Great, Markos. Thank you very much. We were following your presentation from Greece. Worked pretty well. Thank you very much. So next on stage here, Pieter, maybe you join us already on stage while we are in the transition to the next part of our presentation. Now we saw the radar and we saw different kinds of use cases. Hey, Pieter. And it would be great to know a little more about how use cases also move in this radar. So how can we really make it more mature? How can we bring it closer to the market? And we'd like to know more how you can support this.
Of course, Christoph. Now moving from Dortmund to Greece to Dortmund to the Netherlands, I'll take one moment to set up my slides. For which I would like to ask if you at the moment can see my slides.
Perfect. Yes.
All right. Then. Yes. So once again, good afternoon. And thank you for the opportunity to share how InnoPay, as an implementation partner of IDSA, collaborates with the Adoption Accelerator team, and also to explain how to implement data spaces and bring IDS to life. And for this, I will use an example. So I will present our recent progress together with the Adoption Accelerator team on a use case for the energy data space. But first, who we are. So InnoPay is a consultancy for digital transactions. We provide services in, among others, payments, digital identity, and data sharing. And we operate in Amsterdam and Frankfurt. And sector-wide and cross-sectoral cooperation in digital market infrastructures is a cornerstone of our InnoPay approach. With a proven track record, for which you can see examples on the left-hand side, we build ecosystems for data sharing that enable all players to realize the full value of their data. Since 2005, we have been involved in the development of various cross-sectoral trust frameworks or schemes in the Benelux, Europe, and the worldwide, for which you can see examples once again on the left-hand side, of which one noteworthy data sharing example is iShare, but also presented during this IDSA summit this morning. So we build these ecosystems for data sharing through co-creation, bringing parties together, iteratively establishing agreements, including all relevant stakeholders, and including all building blocks on a business, legal, operational, functional, and technical level. And if we use the use case radar that was just aptly presented by Markos, there are 5 processes, 5 phases of building use cases towards data spaces, in which InnoPay provides 4 types of supporting activities to bring IDS to life in data spaces, which is exploring, defining, and documenting use cases with you, going from lead-in to case documented. Shaping an approach with you that will enable your use case, going from case documented to case committed. And if we go from case committed to pilot, it is important to facilitate the co-creation of the data space with the so-called coalition of the willing, which are internal and external stakeholders that are relevant to your use case, that are willing to think along, work along, actually get their hands dirty in getting data sharing to the point where it should be, which is scalable, secure, and sovereign. And if we go from pilot to live, we're this close to creating the data space, and we can help you implement and bring your data space towards the go live. So if we see at the first phase and we zoom in on that, So you see an organization comes to the Adoption Accelerator team, for example, with one or more business challenges for which data should be shared, but they have yet to select which data sharing use case to define and realize, where we can help to explore, define, and document by identifying, scoping, and assessing the potential business value of your use case, for which examples of some of our services are to help develop and execute data sharing strategies and to host workshops or brainstorm sessions to, together with you, generate use cases, further define and scope use cases, and to explore the value to create for your organization through data sharing. So when we move to, okay, we have a use case, we've defined and documented a data sharing use case, including which business challenges to solve and which opportunities to create with the use case. Now what needs to be done is, first of all, set factors on which you will decide whether to continue and initiate your use case. Are you okay with the business challenges to solve and the opportunities it creates? If so, bring this to engage the required internal, external stakeholders in the coalition of the willing, after which, together with the coalition, establish requirements to fulfill that will later on be used when co-creating your data space. And we can help you shape your approach, bring the involved stakeholders together, create a project plan, including resourcing, planning, and gap analysis to see what has to be done. And we can also facilitate workshops to engage these stakeholders and to establish requirements. Once those requirements and the approach is set, the coalition of the willing is there, bring them together and co-create a data space that will enable your use case by allowing data access in a secure, trusted, easy and controlled way. And what needs to be done is to shape a governance. Who will develop, who will manage your data space and based on which rules of engagement. Develop a soft infrastructure of agreements on all business, legal, operational, functional, and technical dimensions. And document all these agreements to make sure you have a starting point. So what we can do for you there is to facilitate the co-creation process, to provide project management services, to provide expertise on data sharing based on nearly 2 decades of practical, hands-on international experience. And then last but definitely not least, implementing and bringing the data space to go live. So you have your pilot, you have a use case, you have a data space where data can now be shared based on specifications made in the previous phase. But now you want to scale up, you want to implement and bring it to the market. For that, you need a management organization. So an organization that takes care of the entire process. Services need to be launched in the market and adoption needs to be guided, just as we do together with the Adoption Accelerator with use cases. That also needs to happen with your use case. And to continue the development of your data space with a roadmap of developments to be made. And some of our services that we can provide is to facilitate the implementation process, to develop a go-to-market strategy, and also to support the adoption process of your data space. And if we now make a bridge towards the energy data space. So yesterday, I already presented during the energy stream, where also the Basque Energy Cluster, together with Natalia, we're talking about this offshore wind energy data space, which you can see on the left. And to shortly provide a little bit of context about the use case, is that the business challenge to solve is that the other side of the data sharing market needs to be activated. So wind turbine manufacturers, also called OEMs, and some wind farm owners, as the data owners or providers, do not provide other players on the offshore wind energy value chain access to data, which leads to data that's available, but not made available to use for innovation. So the proposed solution after the workshop we had, after the entire process going with the Adoption Accelerator team and going to talks and workshops with the Basque Energy Cluster, Natalia and SPRI as key stakeholders involved, is to develop a clear story on a business and technical level of how sharing wind turbine data can be done in a secure and controlled way, benefiting both sides of the data sharing market. So if we zoom in on what we have done together with the Adoption Accelerator team, is that first, from IDSA, the Adoption Accelerator team started the support of the use case together with the key stakeholders. They introduced a meeting heartbeat. In this case, it was every 2 weeks. After which, the Adoption Accelerator team checked what is needed, which expertise, which experience is needed. At that point, the AA team introduced InnoPay. And together with the Adoption Accelerator team, we conducted analysis to explore the market, to see what the context is of the problem that we're trying to solve, the business challenge. And we set alignment meetings to explore how to advance this use case. coming all together in the setup and hosting of a workshop to set the scene, explore the business challenge together, and also to work towards an approach, bringing the use case further down the funnel. And if we see at the second half of the workshop, we had an interactive session for which you can see all the stickers and all the post-its that are being posted online. We had an interactive session to develop a better and more common view with all the involved stakeholders at that moment on approaches to improve the parties' willingness to start sharing their wind turbine data with other players down the value chain in 3 rounds. So first, set the dialogue goals. So if we're going to reach out to stakeholders in a particular role, a particular group within the ecosystem, what do we want to achieve? And how can we improve their competitive position towards OEMs that currently have a data monopoly? And also create a high-level view in the required activities. In the second round, we knew what we wanted to do, and now we determine with whom we want to do that. So we assess together with all stakeholders, what is a list of stakeholders that we still need to involve, and also rank them on level of importance to the initiative. Once we have the goals, we have the stakeholders, that's when we start to determine the key activities with a backlog, but also with a list of key activities for the next 2 to 3 months.
1 minute, Pieter.
Yes. So going to the last slides here is that you see a high-level overview of the result of that workshop and of the work we did together with the Adoption Accelerator team, in which we have a proposed approach that is now available for stakeholders in the use case, helping them with solving the business challenge, which they will use to advance their use case on the use case radar, from case documented to case committed. And these stakeholders now also know who to contact for additional support, both the AA team and InnoPay. And to conclude, is if you would like to know more about what we do, you can visit our website, www.innopay.com, or scan the QR code, or reach out to me via the contact information on the right-hand side. And most of all, thank you for listening, and I'm hoping to speak with all of you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pieter. So some of you might already know Pieter from other calls that we had earlier this year. So he's really with us since quite some time, and will be also in the future to really get the best out of the adoptionists that are with us and that will be with us in the next time to really make adoption for your use cases a success. So thanks for being with us, Pieter. And I think we meet back on stage for the Q&A in a second.
Absolutely.
Next here with me on stage will be Babak and Stefan Ettl. So I can see both of you trying to join the stage already. Good. Stefan, hi, good to see you. And also Babak. Good morning to you, Babak. I think you're at the West Coast, right?
Yeah, it's still not, the sun is not up yet fully, but good morning and good afternoon to everybody.
Yeah, good afternoon and good morning to you. Babak and Stefan want to talk a bit more about the open source connector, the Eclipse project that you, amongst other partners like Amazon, Daimler, and so on and so forth, just started a week ago. I think it went online. So we would be glad to know more about your perspective on this great endeavor.
Thanks a lot, Christoph. Can you see my screen?
We can see the screen and hear you pretty well. You're good to go.
Great, thank you. So, as you already introduced, we would like to talk today about how can the Eclipse Dataspace Connector help to accelerate dataspaces and the adoption of dataspaces especially. But first of all, maybe a bit of a background, why we did this. So recently we've heard a lot of presentations with different technologies about dataspaces and how we can accelerate dataspaces. For us, there is one very important thing, currently, for us as a member, for example, of a dataspace, for example, Catena-X, we obviously need to adopt and integrate the technology Catena-X has applied and says how can we adopt now to Catena-X in order to share data. But as a member of Catena-X, we might not only be willing to just be in the context in the ecosystem of Catena-X, we might be also willing to share data within the dataspace mobility or maybe in the dataspace energy at the same time. Means as a member of all of these data spaces, does it mean in the end that we need to adopt all of these different solutions in the worst case? And that's not the only trigger, to be honest, that made us aware that we need something like, as we call it, the Eclipse Data Space Connector. We have some more difficulties and expectations. But maybe first of all, one thing we've clearly learned, not at least from the data spaces, we really need federated and sovereign data sharing. That's a real business need. At least with the use cases of the different data spaces, we've seen that this is really important for us. But especially sovereignty is not so easy to solve. There are so many different perspectives and dimensions about sovereignty. Is it political or maybe also a lot of business perspective? Therefore, this is one thing we need to come over and we need to solve somehow. Then we have businesses which are operating locally and also on a global scale. That's also a different requirement, and there are different expectations involved. But what we've seen, in our opinion, what is clear, one general thing that is important, I would even say independent of the single requirements and expectations, is that the member or the company, the business, the enterprise needs full sovereignty, full control over its own data. That's really something very important for us. Therefore, what we see as well is that businesses are increasingly use multi-vendor, multi-cloud solutions, for example, to avoid login effects, And this is also something we need to take care of, And therefore, in the end, we've came to the assertion that the industry definitely needs an open, vendor-neutral technology for enabling sovereign and data sharing in a multi-cloud environment. Therefore, we started this project with the Eclipse Data Space Connector. But let's talk about the evolution or what happened so far. So first of all, Fraunhofer and IDSA created a solution so-called the Data Space Connector. Many of you might know it already. Within the Data Space Connector, they clearly formulated a lot of initial requirements, which helped us already a lot for the basis. And it also has brought in some early adopters, early partners, which were already collaborating and thinking about the evolution of this already existing idea. In the end, as you can see, a lot of big partners and very important users and also cloud providers came together. And what we want to do is collaborate in order to develop a single open source solution that meets the requirement for an open data space connector, very important for us, based on Gaia-X principles. And the idea is that the participants bring in the best they have in their companies, their skill, and collaborate with us and push forward this technology while agreeing on the core requirements and goals based on European data spaces as well as Gaia-X principles and values. Also with a global scale in mind. Very important for us. In the end, we want to have a piece of software that is able to act on an operation and on a global operational scale level. So here we are, basically. As you can see on the left, here the involved parties. The Eclipse project has already been approved, has already been created. We would be happy if you would visit us, maybe to get some information on the Eclipse page, but also please feel free to track our progress in the GitHub repository that's already existing. This would be great. We are happy to welcome more contributors. Anyone who is involved, feel free to contact us and visit us. And now Babak will talk more about openness in the scope of the Eclipse Data Space Connector. Babak.
Thank you, Stefan. I think it's to complement what Stefan has been saying, the key aspect of this project is the fact that it's open source, and by open source, we really mean open. So anybody can join, anybody can use the code and branch it, or in any way, it's truly open and inclusive. And the other important thing about this technology is that it's completely platform and vendor neutral. And is designed from the grounds up to be running in a multi-cloud, multi-vendor environment. To get a little specific, it's written in Java, but it's using, even in that, it's using plain Java, and is not using it even in any of the older Java Enterprise runtimes or frameworks. So all you need is plain Java, and you're good to go. The project is, the only other technical requirement is that the components are built into containers and they're executed and managed by Kubernetes. So any environment, from your laptop all the way to a global cloud environment, as long as there is support for containers and Kubernetes, you're good to go. And that's how it is truly multi-vendor. And as well as expectations of multi-cloud runtime environments are built into it. The architecture is pluggable and extensible, so anybody can build can build and run an instantiation of the technology, and they could do that even by mix and matching components. For example, if a vendor or a group prefer to swap one of the components with their own version of it, open or not, open or proprietary, it's fully supported, and in fact that is expected. So not every instantiation of the stack has to be fully open source. You could start from the open source stack and then swap proprietary components and build your own semi-open and semi-proprietary version of it. So in that sense, is very flexible and composable. And the goal for this is the members, I assume most of the members as well, the goal is to contribute this and bring it to GaiaX as part of the architecture of standards, as an example for how federated sovereign data sharing can be done in running code based on European values and based on and aligned with GaiaX vision for data sharing.